victory that has changed and reshaped not only the Egyptian future, but also the whole Middle East future. Let me here recall the quote of President Sadat after 11 days after the war started, when he said, I don't think you're expecting me to come to Prague and show off what we have achieved in 11 days. One of the most important and most dangerous, yet the greatest and most glorious days in our history. But maybe one day we'll come together, sit together, not to brag, not to show off, but to remember and teach our children and our grandchildren, generation after generation, our story of battle, the bitterness of defeat, and the sweetness of hope. This, he said, or those words, precisely what he said 11 days after those glorious days that we have are recalling together, those days and this particular month. We'll be speaking about challenges of yesterday, challenges of today, how the Arab world was reshaped, how the future show off in this upcoming stage, and what's the vision towards our future. Before we delve into our discussion, let me first take the Arab news that took place during this week, and we'll come back for more discussion.
President Abdullah al-Sisi held a telephone call on Wednesday with Tunisian President Kais Saied. During the telephone call, President al-Sisi expressed condolences to the Tunisian president and the Tunisian people over the death of 3 military men after the crash of a military helicopter while carrying out a training in the state of Qadis. The president also expressed Egypt's support for the measures taken by the Tunisian president to build a better future for the Tunisian people and achieve stability in the country. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi held a telephone call on Wednesday with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. The call tackled the latest developments of the Palestinian cause and the peace process. President al-Sisi highlighted the continuous Egyptian efforts towards the Palestinian cause with the aim to refresh the peace process and restore the legitimate rights of the Palestinians. Egypt denounced an Israeli court ruling that gives Jews the right to pray inside Al-Aqsa Mosque, saying it was a violation of the Islamic Mosque. In a statement issued on Thursday, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs reiterated the necessity of respecting the historical and legal status of Jerusalem and its Islamic and Christian holy places in accordance with international resolutions. The ministry also expressed its extreme concern for the repercussions of such a ruling and its impact on the security and stability of the region. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli welcomed the new Lebanese government led by Najib Mikati, wishing it success. During his meeting with visiting Lebanese Energy and Water Minister Walid Fayyad, Madbouli stressed that President al-Sisi has directed for all sorts of support to be provided to the fellow Arab country, especially during the current critical stage. For his part, the Lebanese minister said that he chooses Egypt as the first country to visit after assuming his post in appreciation for its pivotal role in the Middle East region. Fayyad added that his talks with Minister of Oil and Mineral Resources Tariq al-Mullah had focused on shipping Egyptian natural gas to Lebanon in order to help solve the power crisis, extending Lebanon's thanks to Egypt's people and leadership for their consistent support. Cairo and Riyadh signed electricity interconnection contracts on Tuesday. In his speech at the signing of the contracts, Minister of Electricity Mohammed Shakir said that the project caps joint Arab cooperation efforts. He said that it was expected to achieve many benefits for the two sides. Morocco's King Mohammed VI named a new government led by billionaire tycoon Aziz Al-Khanouch. The new cabinet was largely made up of technocrats, with Foreign Minister Affairs Nasser Bourita keeping his role. Akhnouch's National Rally of Independence won 102 of Parliament's 395 seats in September 8th polls.
Right, welcome back. And this very particular war in the history of Egypt, no, in the history of the whole Middle East, and how important that war that has been taught by all the military academics worldwide, and how this war reshaped the future of the Middle East, the whole Arab world at large. We have with us over the phone General Mohammed Al-Ghabbari, strategic analyst, where he will brief us on this important war that has confirmed that the policy of fait accompli cannot be imposed and the peoples of the region cannot be forced to do anything. It also proved that real security doesn't include geographical expansion at the expense of others, so the world became aware that there must be a solution to the Arab-Israeli conflict. And one of the prominent outcomes of this war is raising the slogan of negotiation instead of using weapons. Yesterday, challenges definitely are very much different than tomorrow's challenges, than today's and present challenges. And I guess that the Arab world in a situation where it has to see the past, take the lesson, and start dealing with the future. Before I guess we continue with our discussion, let me take this report and we'll come back for more discussion.
Marking the 48th anniversary of the 6th of October War victory, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi attended the 34th Armed Forces Cultural Seminar entitled Crossing to the Future. In his speech before the gathering, President el-Sisi asserted that the 6th of October War would always remain a turning point in Egypt's history, adding that its anniversary represented the symbols of dignity, strong will and pride. The president also expressed his appreciation to Arab countries for their constant support to Egypt throughout the history, hailing ongoing efforts exerted by the government for developing Sinai. President el-Sisi praised the October War heroes and late President Anwar al-Sadat. The president also praised the Egyptian people for their role during the wartime in supporting the armed forces and confronting pessimism and challenges. During the event, President el-Sisi hailed Lieutenant General Abdurrab al-Nabi Hafiz, one of October War heroes and participant in the seminar. President el-Sisi also praised Major General Samir Farag and the heroes of the armed forces for their sacrifices for the sake of the country. He also thanked Dr. Mufid Shihab, the professor of international law, who was a member of the International Arbitration Committee for Tawba's return. Meanwhile, the head of state hailed the government's efforts for the development of Sinai. On his social media pages, the president praised the armed forces on the occasion of the 48th anniversary of October War and also praised Egypt's martyrs and October generation, as well as late President Anwar al-Sadat, who took the war decision bravely.
Right, welcome back, and to highlight this important topic and how the 6th of October reshaped the future of the whole region. We have with us over the phone Dr. Salah Abdullah, political analyst. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, welcome.
Hello, Dr. Salah, and welcome to you in our show. Let me first take, how do you view how the 73, or this great victory, reshaped the future, first of Egypt and then the Arab world?
Well, in my opinion, the future of Egypt and the Arab region is very strong, and I feel the picture is more and more clear that the unity of the Arabs is a real fact and is not just a talking. If we return to October War as example, the Arab unity was very strong and was one of the major factors for the success and for the victory in that war. And it appears in many aspects. From after the end of 5th June War and what happened there, all the Arab countries, start to help Egypt and Syria, every country by the way they can, from Algeria to Saudi Arabia to Kuwait to Yemen, all the countries to Sudan, all the countries, they were supporting Egypt and Syria in the battle, either by weapons or by soldiers or by buying weapons from Russia to Egypt and so on and so on. And it was the strongest decision for the Arabs was to stop the oil, stop producing oil during the battle. And this, of course, makes a great change in the world, because for the first time the world feels that the Arab unity can be hard and it can be harmful for the enemies. Yemen, as example, they assist Egypt in closing Bab al-Mandab, and this prevents all the supports and all the ships which is going to Israel. Algeria and Libya, they sending troops and aeroplanes to Egypt. So Arab unity was very clear during October War, and it gave impression that in spite of the borders between the Arab countries, but still the human beings in the area feel that all the area is one country and they are all belongs to this area, and the unity of the Arab is a fact and is not just a talking or just expressions.
When we see the challenges of yesterday, when we speak about
Please, the voice is very low. The voice is very low.
Yes, if I raise my voice like that, you'll hear me? You hear me?
Yes, now it's better.
Great. So when we speak about the challenges of yesterday and the challenges of today, and when we speak about how the world looked to the causes of the Arab world at that, after that point or after this victory, when we speak of the imbalances that was between the two sides, the two warring sides, how do you define how the world looked to the Arab causes after this victory, looked to the Egyptian side, to the Egyptian mighty at that very particular time or after this important victory?
Look, after 5th June War, the Arabs and the Egyptians especially was in very low standard, and the people in the world was laughing on the Egyptian and the Arab, or they just lose their own land very easily, and they didn't fight well. This is what was saying in the whole world. And of course Israel using this war to give impression to the world that the Israeli army is the strongest army and cannot be conquered, and Moshe Dayan is Hannibal in the new Hannibal, and of course this was reflecting itself badly on us. But after the victory, things had been changed completely. The world discovered that Israel army is very low standard and it can be conquered, and the Egyptian was crossing the canal in a way nobody was expecting, and the Egyptian soldier and the Arab soldier is very strong and fight for his land,
Yes.
and he's ready to die on his land. Of course, this changes the picture completely in the whole world, and the world was respecting the Arab generally and the Egyptian especially.
Right.
And I remember that the magazine Times was bring the picture of Golda Meir, the Prime Minister of Israel, which was begging President Nixon to save Israel. It was in the first picture in the Times. So this Battle of October and the decision of President Salah for war changes the situation completely from neglected people to a respected people, to a respected army, to the Arabs become, the picture of the Arabs had been changed completely, and even the Western countries start to think, what about this area and the strength of this area, and this is of course change their own plan against the area.
Indeed, Dr. Salah Abdullah. Indeed, very much indeed. The whole, or this victory has changed or reshaped the future of this very particular area. Dr. Salah Abdullah, political advisor, thank you so much for being with us over the phone and for your input. And we'll have a very short break and we'll come back to you.
The news live at the site of the event. Information on events as they are happening. If it's breaking news, it's Nile TV.
Right, welcome back, and we have with us over the phone General Hamdi Bekhit, strategic analyst. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, Mona Hanem. I'm really happy to have you on this introduction and this occasion. Every year we get in a nice and great time talking to the people through your program.
Thank you so much, and the pleasure is all mine. Let me here recall the words of President Sadat when he said that the time will come when we sit together and inform our children of the glory and how we were able to carry the responsibility each in his position. I guess the time has come to tell those stories. And General Hamdi Bekhit, this very particular war has reshaped the future of Egypt, its political situation, and the future of the whole Arab world at large. Tell me from your perspective, how did this war change the world's perspective towards the Egyptian mighty, towards the Egyptian abilities and capabilities?
I'm really glad about this question because as a student in one of the main and important universities in the world, in DC, I was taught that the Egyptians had taught us a lesson that we'll never forget about the early warning. We could deceive all the intelligence communities and systems in a very famous and important and great countries like the United States and the Soviet Union and the British intelligence, even the Mossad and Aman system in Israel. So this is one of the main lessons learned till now in the main and very important and famous institutes in the world. At the same time, Egypt could approve that it's not the weapon or the tool who can make the victory or the history. The man behind these tools and the man using these weapons is the cornerstone or the main element that we could calculate in any conflict with Egypt, because the Egyptian human being could approve himself that he lost a war in a sudden way and couldn't get the chance to fight in 1967. Now, in 1973, as a history, we can learn a lot of lessons made by the Egyptian human being in a very important and a very clever field, which is known as creation and innovation. The Egyptians could make many innovative and creative methods to get over all the hardships and obstacles that faced them to cross the canal. The water guns and leather ropes and using infantry to protect the tanks and the time of assaulting the canal and using unconventional methods to achieve this victory. Even we were using a very old types of airplanes. Some of them were from the Second World War, like the MiG-17, and some of them were from the 50s, like the MiG-21. Tanks were from the Second World War and from the 50s, like the T-34 and the T-54 and 55, or even some personal carriers, and even the guns itself, the artillery. Most of them were not mechanized or propelled as a definite abbreviation. And I'm really completely astonished of how those people could have the patience and the solidarity to achieve this victory, because some of them was in the trenches and in the position for 12 years. They started from Yemen war and ended in 1973 war, and they left the service in 1974. Who can measure the solidarity of this soldier and this fighter? I think when President Sadat said this statement, he was sure that we still have many secrets and we still have many situations which needs to be analyzed for the people and the very young generations to know their fathers and their godfathers were doing or making a miracle by that time with a very simple and modest tools.
Indeed, when we speak, I mean here, no words can describe those or those moments and those days of our glory, when we indeed used the unconventional methods, the very exact pride of the Egyptians was those non-conventional methods which proved that the Egyptian capabilities were the very obvious or important tool for success and for this victory. And as said by Ariel Sharon at that time, that after this war, you will never meet the same fighter of the 56 or the 67. He's another fighter one who is totally different. Let me here ask you, and because of this war, imbalances were changed, because the whole world saw how Egypt has used those non-conventional ways in their fights and achieved victory. If I may ask you of those imbalances and how this war weighed those imbalances or changed those imbalances and how the world looked at it. And then let me ask you also about the challenges of yesterday and the challenges of today.
Here I would like to appreciate this question because it approves how the Egyptians could approve themselves in this war. Let me speak about the comparative between the two fighting forces. As I told you, our airplanes or airplanes fighters were from about 2 or 3 decades before the war. At the same time, the Israeli air forces were composing of models like Mirage and Phantom and Skyhawk, which were the first or the most modern generations of airplane fighters. And although this comparative is already known, the MiG-17 could destroy these moderate and advanced types of airplanes. The artillery, when we compare the artillery, almost of the artillery forces of the Israeli army were propelled. They can produce fire or use their weapons from any position to another in no time. But at the same time, our artillery was not that propelled artillery. It was working and producing fire from position and be taken by cars to another position. At the same time, the theory that we have innovated in that war, that the infantry soldier helps and protects the tank. In all the military history, we couldn't hear about that because the first waves of crossing or assaulting the canal, most of them were from the infantry and special forces. Those were equipped with anti-tank weapons that could used by in a personal way. So you can't imagine that 3 soldiers could destroy more than 70% of an armored brigade. Abdullah destroyed 23 tanks. Muhammad al-Masri destroyed 27 tanks. Ibrahim or Muhammad Ibrahim could destroy 17 tanks. When you calculate all these numbers, you can find that about 70% of an armored brigade were destroyed. And we have the measures to know if this unit can sustain in the battlefield or not. And 50 or 60% of an armored brigade could conceal it from the field or from the battle. See
General
how
Hamdi, I'm running out of time, but I really need to hear from you all those glorious days, but in person. So if we can have you just on one of our Saturdays, it would be great.
okay.
Especially this month.
I would like here to know that or to tell the people how the Egyptian political administration could learn the lessons and build a very strong and seated army in the world and in the area. So
very much indeed. And we're looking forward to have you here, sir, with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. General Hamdi Bekhit, strategic analyst, thank you so much for being with us over the phone. And I guess that takes us to the end of this episode. Until next Saturday, it's goodbye.